Welcome back to another episode of Bay Area Home Hustle Podcast, and we're here again.
Hi guys, again.
Yep. So let's talk about a really interesting topic that is relevant right now, and that is contingencies. Right.
Okay.
We're in a buyer's market. Right?
Finally, you admit it.
Finally, I still debate you.
Micro markets. I get it. Right? I get it.
But since we have a lot of inventory, there's a lot of buyers are out there, and they have a lot more choices right now. Right. So one of the things that they weren't able to use before was contingencies, right? And that's basically a contingency. Essentially, well, there's three types of contingencies in a contract, right? There is a home investigation, which is buyer's investigation, where they order home
inspections,
a home inspection, a pest inspection, a roof inspection. That's one of them. The second contingency is the loan itself, right? Loan has to be approved before they can move forward. It has to be underwritten or at least approved by the underwriter, so forth.
Right.
And the third one is appraisal.
Right.
The property that you're trying to buy has to appraise at
the value price. If you're going to go through a lender.
Right. So the contract price that you write it on, it has to at least appraise for that amount.
Right.
I mean, there's other ways around it too. You can always make up the difference in the contract and so forth, but we're not going to talk about that.
Right.
But so let's just stick to contingencies specifically. So those are the three types of contingencies that you need to use in today's market.
So okay, in this situation with the buyer's market, as we've been talking, a lot of the buyers out there feel that they can lowball the seller because it's in my favor now. It's a buyer's market.
Yeah.
Well, this may not really work because then you can get an outright rejection. If you really like the house, you lowball the seller first of all will feel slighted, right?
Yeah.
And then he's going to just reject your offer. Now, if you really want the house, there are different ways of going about it.
Yeah.
Come close to the listing price because you know what? Most agents don't like messing around. They're not going to keep it really low or keep it really high because everybody knows the market. Everybody knows the value of that area.
Yeah. I mean, remember, at the end of the day, real estate is very emotional.
Right.
When someone's selling a property or someone's buying a property, there's a lot of emotion that goes into it, right?
Right. You're taking a big ass mortgage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, unless you see a property that is listed at a unreasonable price or something, right? And then you think, okay, your agent thinks this doesn't make sense, right? The comps are not there. Even the last 15, 20 days, the list ratio is off to list to sold ratio is off, right? What other properties are being listed in the market versus what's sold and so forth. Then you can, I understand you wanting to do a low ball, but if it's listed right with the numbers and it's, it provides the value and so forth, then I would,
because the seller and the agent, the listing agent is going to feel insulted, because we as agents, okay, we actually do our homework.
Yeah.
Before we actually list the property, I think we go back 24 hours, sometimes 48. As close to as possible to the market.
Absolutely, we check comps even to the last minute of it. Actually, we even check comps the day after, just to see what's happening, what's closed that may have been pending before, and if the price needs to be adjusted, we communicate that out. But end of the day, yes, you're right, absolutely. If you're a buyer offering in this market, right, just know that. Sometimes lowball offers work, but sometimes they won't. So you have to really
more often than not. Okay, they don't work.
They don't. Going back to contingency. So if you offering in this market with all these choices present, unless it's a competitive property or competitive micro market, you can use these contingencies, right? Even the buyer investigation, even the loan and appraisal, right? You should be able to use these. And a lot of times your lender even will tell you hey, you can have contingencies, but maybe reduce them down to a lower point. So by default, they're 17 days and 21 and 21 days.
So every contingency can be negotiated.
Right.
So actually, I want to bring this up. We have a listing.
Yeah.
It came in with no contingencies. An offer came in with no contingencies.
Right.
But was lowball.
It was lowball offer. Yeah.
And of course, we have to do justice with our seller, so we had to present the offer.
Yes.
But you know what? We knew, and as well as the seller's response was, it ain't gonna go. You may have zero contingencies, but if you're gonna have a low ball number like that,
Yeah.
ain't gonna work.
So then, yeah, that particular scenario was a good offer. I mean, it was a good offer in terms of the terms, right? But the price wasn't just there. It was a lowball offer. We did, counter them, and they never responded back. So that was that.
That happens. So that's why the strategy with a seasoned agent, right?
Yeah.
They'll try to come close to list without nowadays ain't gonna go higher. Maybe it just spot on at the list price, right?
Or maybe a few $1,000s over.
Yeah, if it was like 19888, maybe that's $3,000, something like that.
Yeah.
But it would be, at least have one or two contingencies, and then we can get the conversation going.
Right.
100%. Instead of I want 17 days inspection, right? Then we can go, how about 11? I will give you a week and a little, or maybe more.
Right. So yeah, in a competitive market, I mean, even in today's market, I would use those, right? Even just have a 3-day inspection period for you, just a safety net, right? Because remember, end of the day, this is going to protect you and your deposit, the EMD that you put up when you go into contract. This is going to save you a headache a little bit,
right?
Especially if you discover something. And on the other cases that I was going to say is that I would especially use the buyer investigation contingency in a case where there are no reports, right? If you get into a contract on a property and they don't have any reports to offer you, right? They haven't done their
it's actually getting common.
Yeah, it's
getting quite common nowadays.
So if they don't have those, then as a buyer, I think you should have that contingency in place just to make sure that within the next days you can hire someone, a third-party professional, and go in and do their due diligence and be able to tell you if the property is sound and you can move forward.
Right. Or you can actually, here's another strategy with a pre-qual. So before, we always talk about this, before you actually go house hunting, talk to your lender, find out how much house you can buy, right? And then you can put a heavy down and even get rid of the appraisal because you can get the loan, right? So
and the second, so that's like the first part, all right? But the second one is the appraisal contingency, right? And you'll have that in there too. And sometimes properties will come lower. They'll appraise lower than what you offer, right? Unless in your contract you tell them that you will bridge the difference between the appraisal and the sale price.
Yes.
Or rather the offer price, right? So in other words, you're saying like let's say if you have a property that you made an offer on for $900,000 and your appraisal comes in at like $875, and in the contract you said you'll make the difference between the gap between the two. So between $875 and your offer price of $900. So in other words, you got to come out of pocket another $25,000. So sometimes that does happen.
But it also shows that the seller is serious.
Yeah.
And you know what? Because first of all, as a seller, of course they were like a little bit more money, right? Yeah. So at list you went over 25, but then it came in at list because we do our homework really well.
Right.
So you just need to come up with a 25, and then if you have it in the contract, it shows the seller that, hey, this guy really wants to play ball.
Right. And on the flip side of that is that sometimes you won't have that in the contract where you say you'll bridge the gap between the two, and you're just relying on the appraisal to come in at par at what you offered, and sometimes it won't work, right? So if the appraisal comes in low, your agent at that point has to renegotiate, and the seller has to drop the price at to the appraised value. Right. And that does happen as well too.
Right.
So just know that as well.
And sometimes the seller may not want to cover the balance. So again, negotiation. How about half-half?
Yeah, exactly.
Everything is negotiable.
Absolutely. And the last contingency is the loan. Now this is a tricky one, right? If for some reason you're pre-qualified in the beginning and you're going through this loan process or the purchase process in the next 20 days and so forth, and come, let's say, the 22nd day, if they discover something else, like for instance, they can't verify your employment, or you make some sort of other crazy purchase, or for some reason the funds that were there before that you showed as proof are no longer there, that can derail your loan.
A lot of mistakes potential buyers make just before they actually go house hunting, they buy a new car.
Yeah.
No
credit cards, no car buying.
We did a video on that.
No purchases, no major purchases whatsoever. That's going to rely on refunds.
I mean, go to Costco, spend a couple $100, that's okay, right? But what I'm saying is no major purchases.
Yeah, nothing that do with financing you should not do. Like no one should be running your credit when you're purchasing a home, right? Because it dings your credit and it lessens your
loan.
Right. Absolutely. So yeah, so those are in a nutshell are the three sort of contingencies that you should be deploying in this market. I mean, we encourage our buyers to do it
Yeah,
in this
actually,
market.
this is what I see nowadays.
Yeah.
Buyers are actually coming out. Whenever we do open houses, we see first time buyers.
Yep.
Okay, and the reality is, I think they're accepting interest rates are going to be like that. Maybe fluctuating, maybe go down a little bit, but before it goes up a little bit, they want to get locked in.
Right. Yeah, and given the current climate, right? I mean, the rates. If we're talking about rates right now, real quick, the rates are not going down anytime soon. I mean, the Fed already made that clear, right? I mean, they're going to fight this inflation, sort of maybe even stagflation, possible recession. We'll see what happens in a quarter or two. But this is just here for now, and it's not going to go away. Having said that, this is the new normal, right? If you are buying a property in this market, you're going to have to figure out a way to finance that property. I mean, your loan person should have a lot of options for you, right? I mean, there's quite a different programs out there. There's even ARM products now that's available, meaning like you have a set payment, like interest only payment for a couple of years, and then it can be refinanced later. So yeah, this market is a different market right now.
Actually, because we work in the Bay Area, right, in California, there is really a lot more inventory.
There is now.
And here's a little bit of data for you. I was just reading this. In San Francisco, used to be a hot market, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much inventory, there's 43% increase of unsold homes year to year. So from last year to this year, it's 43%.
Yeah. I mean, but again, San Francisco has its own issues too. In the East Bay here, though, things are moving. Things started to move back up again, right? I mean, we are listing these properties very consciously, right?
Consciously, yes, I like that word. We read the market. We have to look at the signs of the market.
Right.
We do our research. We look around. We ask other agents. Know,
and that's not just us either, right? I mean, it's everyone's. I think under a norm, they understand that this is more a buyer's market.
Right.
Price it right so we can sell. Because the last thing we want to do is take on our client's listing, list it high, and then 30 days or 60 days later ask for price cuts and stuff, right? I mean, price cuts sometimes will happen because,
but not because we listed high.
But make sure, when they list it properly, right? It's moving faster, right? So things have started to pick back up again, especially in this month in May. Applications for new purchases have gone up. Applications for refinancing have gone up, and that's just sort of the new norm that's setting in, that this is the new reality, that the rates will stay inflated for a while. Inflation is going to be here for a while. We still have tariffs, unresolved tariffs that going on that will probably get resolved, but we have those situations.
It'll take time. But since we work in Alameda and Contra Costa counties, certain areas are hotter. Certain areas in these two counties, certain cities, I should say, are slower. In some other cities in these two counties are really hot. So it all depends.
So go out there, put in offers, make sure you use those contingencies.
We advise on that.
Your agent should be able to walk you through those very nicely. Take it to your advantage.
Hit us up if you have other questions. We're here to help. I mean, even if you have other agents, that's fine too. Because you know what, agents cooperate.
Absolutely. If you have any questions, shoot us down below, and we'll love to help you out, or at least help you answer those questions. Anything else?
We're here to help.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.